think one of the biggest challenge was data insights for me, right? So in the earlier attempt, the reason I got low score was because of data. That's something. So primarily I lack the speed. It's not that if you give me 5 minutes, I can solve any question. But if I have to solve that question in 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes, then it was very challenging for me.
Right.
So basically, so just after gauging the question, I used to understand that, okay, maybe this question will have some sort of this kind of pattern. So because I had solved n number of such questions, that pattern identification became really easy for me. So the one pattern that I have identified, especially in the CR, right? So the reason I used to select wrong answer is I would have missed very tiny small detail, maybe one word or maybe something I missed in the question,
Right.
and then the option capitalized on that, right?
Right.
Because question makers are smart enough to know that maybe some people will miss this and they'll select this answer, right? So I used to fall
Yes.
in this trap. So
Right.
I think reading question is really, really important, right? So I would say if you have 2 minutes to solve CR,
Hmm.
I think spend at least 80 seconds reading the question.
Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thank you for joining in. Today, we have with us Dhruv, who has scored a 705 on his recent attempt. So welcome, Dhruv, and a huge, huge congratulations to you.
Thank you, Abba. Thank you.
So Dhruv, when we look back at your journey, you have had a very interesting start itself. You started off with a 675, and you joined us back in June mid. And at this point, you've already taken your test on 3rd of August, and you're at a 705. So when you were giving the test, did you feel that things were going all planned and all good?
To be honest, I could not gauge that I was going to get 705 because not everything was going according to plan. I was missing out on few questions. But yeah, fortunately, at the end of the exam, things turned out to be well.
Yes.
So
So what was your reaction? Because while giving the test, there is a bit of anxiousness. There's a bit of, you're always worried, but you still keep moving forward. But when you saw that score, what was your first reaction? Relief?
yeah, I was relieved. And first of all, I was not able to believe that I got 705. So in GMAT, generally, when you end the exam, you have to raise your hand and then someone will come up
Yes.
and he'll end the exam for you. I asked him,
Right.
What is this number written? It looks like 705. I said, okay, okay.
Okay. Right. Right. And so when you look back at your journey, Dhruv, what was your biggest challenge that you feel maybe in a particular section or something that you thought was, when you started off, you thought this was a really huge hurdle and you had to tackle it?
I think one of the biggest challenge was data insights for me, right? So in the earlier attempt, the reason I got low score because of data, I don't remember exactly, but less than 80
Hmm.
number in the
Hmm.
data insight. Right? So that's why I was not able to cross the 700 mark.
Right.
Right? And despite me being data scientist, the section that is weakest for me was data insight, that is done. But
Right.
yeah, so that's something. So primarily I lack the speed. It's not that if you give me 5 minutes, I can solve any question. But
Hmm.
if I have to solve that question in 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes, then it was very challenging for me. That was the biggest struggle.
Right, right. And speed, and time management is a problem that a lot of students face in the end. So when you say that you were able to improve your speed, that cannot just fall with more practice, right? There must be some tweaks that you have done to your process or the way that you approach the questions. So could you elaborate a bit more on that? What changed in DI for you?
I think one of the things that I learned, I mean, it's not something you'll learn very easily, but one of the things I learned to identify patterns, right? So basically, so just after gauging the question, I used to understand that, okay, maybe this question will have some sort of this kind of pattern, right? So I should think like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because I had solved n number of such questions, so that pattern identification became really easy for me, right?
Right.
And that is why I was able to sort of improve a lot in the speed. So that's where I think there is a lot of practice material on the GMAT portal as well, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
also helped a lot, right? So there are a lot of tweaked questions, right? So a lot of questions are similar to OG questions, but those are slightly different, right? So that prepares you that what are the different kinds of questions that are going to be asked, right? So in the exam, I faced mostly similar questions, right? So I did not have to create any new method for me. So most of the
Mm-hmm.
question I faced in the exam, those type of question I already practiced somewhere,
Right,
right?
right. So
So
there
that
was a
helped.
sense of familiarity. There was no surprise element on the test.
Yes,
Right,
yes, yes.
right. And moving to your other sections, because at this point when we look at your split, it's very interesting This is something that we just spoke about. It's 85 across the board, right? A V85, Q85, and a DI85, right? So when you talk about your V85, that itself is a huge achievement, right? So if we fine tune and if we dig deeper into your verbal, what were, the small things that you changed along the way, right? And also the crucial part that I wanted to understand is that you took a lot of timed quizzes for verbal, for quant and DI as well, right? So what were the key things that you would keep in mind while taking those cementing quizzes in perfectly? Because CR and RC, the time management is very different, right? So what would you keep in mind?
Um, so in verbal, I think rather than time, I used to focus more on accuracy. Right? So in verbal, the thing is you will not know that answer is right or wrong, right? So in quant and in DI, you have some sense that okay, you got 50 answers, so there is very less chance that 50 will not be an answer. But in verbal, there are two, three very similar options. You will never know that whether you did right or not, right? So I heavily focused on the accuracy part initially.
Hmm.
Right. Even if I'm missing 3, 4 questions on the later half, that is okay. But whatever question I attempt, I wanted to make sure that I get 95% accuracy. And
Right,
after that, I started timing strictly. That 23 question I have to solve in 45 minutes. That is very strict. Still,
right.
later phase also, I used to miss 2 or 3 questions. I was able to attend 21, 22 questions, but one question I was missing.
Mhm.
And that did not happen in the exam. That is, yeah.
Right. And you said a very interesting thing that sometimes in verbals, the answer choices are very close and it's difficult to navigate. But when we look into your stats, you were hitting those 70, 80% accuracy, even on those hard questions. Right. So how would you navigate your way through? Or what were the patterns of errors you identified when you reviewed those questions that maybe made you select the wrong answer choice? If in cases where you were getting something incorrect.
So the one pattern that I have identified, especially in the CR, right? So the reason I used to select wrong answer is I would have missed very tiny small detail, maybe one word or maybe something I missed in the question,
Right.
and then question capitalized on that, right?
Right.
They because question makers are smart enough to know that maybe some people will miss this and they'll select this answer, right? So I used to
Yes.
fall in this trap. So
Right.
I think reading question is really, really important, right? So I would say if you have 2 minutes to solve CR,
Hmm.
I think spend at least 80 seconds reading the question, at least. That's what I would say. 80 seconds, then you can jump to options, right?
Right.
I used to do other way around when I started with CR, but after that I realized if you thoroughly understand the question, then I mean literally the question is solved. Right? You just need to get the right answer.
Yeah, and it's great you pointed that out, that you yourself also sometimes used to miss that small detail, and that's what connected to the main question. So it's all about, how you start off. If you can comprehend it the right way and extract meaning then and there, I think the rest of the steps do follow through, right? And for the sectionals part of it, like, while you have taken good number of mocks on the platform as well, you had a series of sectionals that you took in the final stages, and you took around quant, in verbal, in DI as well. Right. So how does the sectionals, prepare you for the mocks and the actual test? Is it more like a stepping stone for you? That's how you took it in your prep?
Uh, sectionals for me was uh, sectional for me was more of that. Let's say I don't have time for full test. Or I don't have time to study anything, right? So in
Right.
the later stages of the prep, I wanted to be in touch. So my verbal was almost sorted. I was getting very good score in verbal, right? But
Hmm.
I was making some silly mistakes in quant. I was making silly mistakes in DI, right? So there is no point of giving full mock, right? But I wanted to
Hmm.
improve on the quant and so whenever I have, let's say 1 hour, I used to give e-GMAT DI or e-GMAT quant depending on my mood what I want to solve, right? And that's how I kept on improving.
Right.
So
And about the errors, because you mentioned about, silly errors here, but I understand those silly errors are more like careless mistakes. Like you said, you missed a detail or a calculation mistake, right? So how did you come down to the pattern of mistakes? Was there a review system that you would put into place or make sure that you keep in mind after every quiz? So what was your way of doing a review after the quizzes?
I think after quiz, it is very important that you take a dedicated time to review the quiz, right? So let's say you are giving a quiz for 45 minutes, at least spend 1 hour to review that quiz, right? So when I say review, don't only review the wrong ones. Maybe review the questions where you spend higher amount of time, right? Maybe you can done the same question using better method or maybe other way, right? So and on the wrong question, understand that this is a conceptual flaw or this is a calculation issue, right?
Mhm.
So calculation mistake means why are you doing this calculation? You have to talk to yourself and you have to think that why am I doing this mistakes? And if it is a conceptual problem, then revise those concepts again. Maybe practice for that particular topic from the topics wise sections.
Right. Right. So let's take an example. Right here, you have identified that this is a problem area for you, maybe a particular topic such as LCM, GCD, or primes, okay, through your sectionals or your quizzes. So, what would be your next corrective action? How would you go about fixing it?
Yeah, so I'll start with a topic-wise test. I think that is there in the e-GMAT portal, right? So I'll start with topic-wise test. I think the thing about topic-wise test is it has diverse set of questions, right? So basically, so in the topic also there are some subtopics, right? So maybe you are lacking concepts there, right? So I want to
Right.
narrow down on that particular subtopic, and then maybe I'll revise the concept. Maybe I don't understand one or two concepts, right? And,
Right.
and, and a lot of time I did not have to revise, go through the theory itself. It's just that I got these two questions wrong. I see the solution, and then I
Mhm.
understood, okay, maybe I was missing out on this question,
Right.
concept, right? So make a
Right.
note of that concept and move forward.
Got it. Got it. And moving to your mocks, okay, because mocks definitely play a very, very important role. And your mocks were actually predicting that you are well on your path to success. So I'm sure that while getting into the room, you had a sense of little bit of confidence that, you have done these things before because you were hitting those 700s, back to back, especially in the last two mocks
Right.
consistently, right? So when we talk about your mocks, was there a particular sequence that you followed in the mocks? And how did you decide that this was something that I'm going to, maybe take up in the test as well?
Uh, right. So in my first attempt, I used to follow a weird sequence. I used to start with data insights, then verbal, and then quant.
Okay.
I had some notion that the first section that you face, it comes out to be easy. So you'll
Okay.
face some easy questions, and that's why DI was my weakest section because I was struggling with speed in my first attempt. So that's why I
Right.
decided to go with DI and then strongest section last.
Hmm.
But yeah, then later I practiced with that strategy. But later in the second attempt, I experimented in the e-GMAT mocks with the normal strategy, which is quant, verbal, and DI, and
Hmm.
that used to work well.
Okay.
So the answer is experiments. I think the strategy makes more sense.
Right, right. And were there some, key notes that you would keep in mind while taking mocks? Because, like you said, you had less time, you would focus on the sectionals because they're 45 minutes. You can give that
Correct.
dedicated time. But when you talk about the full length mock, it is triple, right? While there is a short break, but it takes a lot of stamina to build up and to sit for that longer and also to maintain that kind of accuracy. Right.
Correct.
So, what was there something that you would keep in mind that, this is how I'm going to do, or some strategies that you would like to share?
Yeah. So for mocks, I think what is highly recommended is you create a GMAT-like environment at home
Hmm.
whenever it is possible, right? So if it's a 3 hours mock, right? So don't take it lightly that after a section, maybe pause it and then hang out somewhere. That doesn't work. Give the mock
Right.
like you are giving GMAT, right? That will prepare you for the real exam because in real exam you have to sit for 3 hours, right? So if you make this habit, if you have given 3, 4 mocks like that, then you understand that okay, it takes a lot of focus. And in the third section, actually, it is not easy to concentrate, right?
Hmm.
If you don't have a habit of sitting for 3 hours and continuously giving exam, so I think
Right.
that is very important.
Yeah, I think you said a very interesting point not to pause mocks. I think a lot of students, sometimes while giving the test itself, because they feel that a question is not doable or something, they might take that option where they're like, okay, I'll continue after some time. But what they're doing is they're taking that extra time that they would not get in the test at all. So sitting for, the mock straight in a row is very, very crucial. Right now, deciding on the test date, were there some factors that you considered, or when did you go about booking your test date?
Um, to be honest, I did not have the choice to book because I was chasing the round one deadline, so I had
Yes.
to book it. So it was I wanted to book earlier because I was getting scored in sectionals and everything earlier, but earlier because it's a peak season right now, so I was not getting the slot. So yeah, I think the answer is I was chasing R1 deadline, so there was no option.
Right. So did you have a test date booked before you started taking the full length mocks? Or, while you were taking the mocks, you decided on the test date?
No, after mocks only. So my NBA.com mocks I already exhausted in my first attempt. So I only
Right.
had e-GMAT mocks. So
Right.
after taking, I think, 3 GMAT mocks and a lot of sectional mocks, I came to realization that maybe
It's
I'm
time.
there almost. Yeah, I'm there at 685, 695. Now it's a matter of day that if I get plus 30 or minus 30. It's like,
Right. Right. So it was more like when you started seeing the results, right? When you started seeing that your mocks, the sectionals are almost close to what you want to achieve, you decided on testing. That's a good
correct.
way to go about it. So, Dhruv, if you have to summarize your journey, because I know GMAT has has had its own ups and downs when you talk about your journey. This was your second attempt. The first attempt did not go as well because of particular reasons, right? So when you look back at your journey, what would be some of those key insights that you would like to share with other GMAT aspirants?
Yeah, I think a couple of insights. One is a lot of things are not in your hand, right? So try to control things that are in your hand, right? And everyone has a different journey, right? So some people may say that I was able to get 735 in 2 months, but
Mm.
maybe it will take you 4 months. The starting point is not the same for everyone. Right? So you'll have to focus on your own journey and identify your mistakes. That is the only way to do well in GMAT. And again, GMAT, there is this notion that GMAT is a really, really easy exam because when people say GMAT, they think that getting 635, 645, 655. Yes, maybe getting 655 is easy, but
Mm.
getting crossing 705 is difficult, right? So
Right.
accept that it is difficult and give yourself some time and work on your mistakes rather than saying that why I'm not able to do that.
Right.
That's
Yeah, I think very well summarized, right? Because I think the pointers that you've brought are, some of the very common misconceptions. And, while yes, a 655 score is much more achievable when compared to a 700 plus, but that gap, to fill that gap, it really takes some strategic review and to understand what kind of mistakes you are doing. And it worked out well for you extremely because coming from a place where you already had a strong score of 675, but you still put in the effort to get that verbal quant, especially that DI, which was once a weaker area, at this point is at 85, which itself is a story, right? So on that note, I think, Dhruv, I would really, really thank you for taking out the time today and sharing your insights. And I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of students who would be looking into this video. And we wish you all the best from the entire e-GMAT team for your applications and your next steps.
thank you. Thank you.